I'm Alex. Tonight, we're diving into something that most of us encounter more often than we'd like: anger. Not just the loud, explosive kind, but the simmering resentment, the sharp words held in the back of your throat, the clenched jaw in a quiet room. Welcome to Stillness and Strength, my quiet little corner of the internet where we breathe, reflect, and return to what truly matters. Here, we don't chase perfection. We study calm. We question chaos. And we learn to sit with life as it is. The world may not be yours to control, but your mind, that's your kingdom. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I love knowing who's on the other side of this quiet night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk into the memory as if stepping into the glow of a fading sunset. The moment is familiar. Someone had said something cruel. Perhaps they didn't mean to hurt you, or perhaps they did. It doesn't really matter now. What remains is that burning sensation in your chest, like a fire that caught quickly and demanded to be fed. You know the instinct: retaliate, defend, prove them wrong, say something sharper, make them feel the sting they gave you. But tonight in this story you do something else. You breathe, once, slowly, and in that breath you become the person who refuses to add fuel to the fire. The Stoics called this proherses, your power to choose your response, not the event, not the insult, just your inner domain, your will, your attitude. That's where your freedom lives. You imagine yourself holding a piece of dry wood above a flame. One word, one gesture, and the fire grows wilder, but you pull it back. You do not throw it in. You let the fire die of its own hunger. This is the first lesson. Not every fire deserves wood. Someone once told you that silence is weakness, that to say nothing is to let others win. But what if you looked deeper? What if you understood that silence, the kind rooted in strength, is not passive, it is decisive? What if, in holding your tongue, you were not surrendering, but standing tall in a battle you've already won inside? The fire burns hot, but only when it finds something to consume. You've become a space where no anger finds purchase, no insult finds echo. It is not detachment, it is discipline. It is not apathy, it is awareness. You think of Marcus Aurelius, alone in his tent, writing not to boast but to remember. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. And you realize your stillness tonight is not silence from cowardice, but silence with clarity. Can you feel that? The way your body softens just by letting go of the script you were about to recite. The way your breath returns when you stop rehearsing the comeback. The fire fades, not because you ran from it, but because you stopped feeding it. It's strange, isn't it? How powerful you feel when you say nothing and mean it. When you don't explain, don't argue, don't try to fix someone's broken moment with more noise. You become the calm in the room, the quiet in the middle of a storm. And from there you begin to see, they're not angry at you. They're lost in their own battle. You just happen to walk through their war zone. Would you be proud of the words you wanted to say if you heard them in someone else's voice? Would you find wisdom in your anger or just echoes? Tonight, as the day winds down, let this truth wrap around you gently. Your silence is not empty. It is a full room, a sacred space, a decision that echoes further than shouting ever could. And if you're ever unsure, choose to wait, to hold, to let the moment pass. The fire may demand a reply. But you are under no obligation to answer. You sit with the weight of the unsent letter. Not a literal one, perhaps, though maybe, somewhere in an old drawer there is a folded note, ink faded with time, never delivered. But more often, it's the kind you write in your head. The paragraphs you rehearse after an argument. The words you imagine saying if only you had the courage, or the opportunity, or the perfect moment. But you don't send it. And that choice, it's not cowardice, it's mastery. There's a peculiar freedom in restraint, a clarity that emerges when you let a thought live only inside you, then gently let it go, like a bird that didn't need a cage in the first place. You remember what Seneca said, don't you? No man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom is deliberate. It is forged in moments exactly like this, when you're burning with something to say, but you choose instead to understand yourself first. You write the letter in your mind not to deliver it but to see yourself clearer. The words come fast at first, raw, charged, drenched in hurt, but you keep writing, and something shifts. The edges soften. You begin to see not just what was done to you, but the fear behind the other person's actions. You see how anger is often a mask for shame, for helplessness, for grief. How what feels like an attack is sometimes a cry. And in that space, the Stoic inside you awakens. You ask, what part of this truly belongs to me? Not everything thrown at you is yours to catch. Not every wound needs to be carried forward. You find, to your surprise, that letting the words stay unwritten, or unspoken, is like choosing to let the arrow fall to the ground instead of pulling it from your chest just to hurl it back. You refuse to be a weapon in a war that isn't yours to fight, and you feel lighter. There's a secret the world rarely tells you. Not all healing comes from expression. Some healing comes from containment, from sitting quietly with your storm until it passes, from respecting the silence enough to not break it with noise that serves no one, especially not yourself. You don't ignore what happened. You don't pretend it didn't sting. But you honor your own peace more than the urge to retaliate. You choose not to send the letter, and in doing so, you return to yourself. There's beauty in this practice, in writing things you'll never send, in rehearsing words you'll never say just to empty the emotional chamber safely. You're not suppressing, you're transmuting. That's what philosophy teaches you, doesn't it? That anger, if examined, loses its edge. That emotion, if sat with long enough, transforms. Epictetus would smile at this moment. He taught, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. But tonight, you are no accomplice. You're simply the observer, the one who watches the flame flicker but does not reach for the match. So the next time you feel the flood rise, the indignation, the insult, the urge to set things right with sharpness, remember this. You have already written the letter, you have already felt it fully. You simply chose not to send it, and in that small, invisible act you've done something extraordinary. You've broken the chain, you become a mirror still, unmoving, unflinching. Someone throws words at you, sharp and fast like stones. Their tone is jagged, their eyes narrow, their breath hot with accusation. They want something from you, maybe submission, maybe shame, maybe a spark of your own anger so they can justify theirs. But you do not reflect the chaos. You simply remain. Have you ever looked at a mirror during a storm? The wind howls outside, the trees bend, rain lashes at the glass. But inside, the mirror still reflects only what is present. It doesn't distort. It doesn't judge. It doesn't retaliate. It just witnesses. That's what you become when you choose not to react. In that moment, you reclaim your sovereignty. It is one of the greatest Stoic principles. You cannot control what others do, only how you choose to see it. And by seeing without flinching, by witnessing without absorbing, you transform the encounter. Not by force, but by presence. The other person may continue shouting. They may search your eyes for a spark, any spark, that shows their words have landed, that they've pierced you somehow. But all they find is a calm surface. You don't need to defend what is not wounded. You don't need to reply to what doesn't belong to you. What if silence isn't just absence of sound, but the presence of understanding? You feel your breath deepen. You listen, not just to the words, but to the pain behind them. You hear not just the anger, but the fear hiding beneath it. You notice how their hands tremble, how their voice rises not in strength, but in desperation. And you don't mirror that. You hold your shape. You hold your stillness. There is something revolutionary in this, in not taking the bait, in not giving what is demanded of you when it would cost your peace. Marcus Aurelius called it standing upright, not being held upright. You are not frozen out of fear. You are choosing your posture, choosing your silence, choosing to reflect without distortion. This is not indifference. This is clarity. You do not need to win the argument. You do not need to be right tonight. You just need to be whole. Think about how many conversations turn into conflict, not because of what was said, but because of how it was received. How often do we take offense where none was needed? How often do we inherit the emotions of others as if they were gifts we could not refuse? You don't have to carry that anymore. You can look at anger, even directed at you, and say quietly inside, "This is not mine." The mirror is powerful not because it reacts, but because it reveals. And sometimes when someone sees their reflection in your silence, they realize they are shouting at themselves. Let them. You have nothing to prove. Tonight, as you lay here in the dark, ask yourself, who have I been a mirror to today? And did I reflect peace, or did I shatter in response? The answer is not meant to shame you. It's meant to guide you, to remind you that you can begin again tomorrow more still, more grounded, more able to hold your center. You are the mirror. Let the storm pass around you. You leave the room, not in anger, not in defeat, but in quiet mastery. You rise from the table mid-conversation, mid-confrontation, mid-chaos, and you simply walk out, not as one who flees, but as one who knows the value of peace over noise. Outside, the air is cooler, still. You feel it on your skin like a balm. Behind you, the room still hums with voices, agitation, unfinished thoughts. But in front of you, there is only silence, space, choice. This is the empty chair in the storm, the one that remains behind when you step away, like a symbol, a witness that says, "This presence no longer serves clarity." Too often you've stayed seated, haven't you? Out of guilt, out of hope, out of the belief that resolution must happen now, that to walk away is to abandon the work of truth. But what if walking away is the work? What if stepping out is not avoidance but wisdom? You remember what Epictetus taught. If someone irritates you, it is your own response that is the problem. The irritation, the escalation, the tangled mess of words, they only take root in you if you stay where they thrive. Tonight you choose something else. You choose the door, the pause, the gap, and in that gap something shifts. You no longer try to win the debate. You stop proving your worth. You abandon the urge to fix someone else's storm while your own soul trembles for shelter. That chair behind you, it holds your former self. The self who believed every confrontation must be completed, that every tension must be resolved in a single sitting. But now you know better. You realize that leaving doesn't mean losing. It often means saving your clarity, your tone, your ability to return later with love rather than regret. You walk out not to punish but to protect, not to escape but to breathe. It's strange how rarely we give ourselves permission to leave rooms that no longer hold wisdom. But the Stoic in you nods in understanding. To remain calm, you must sometimes remove yourself from the noise. To respond wisely, you must sometimes interrupt the momentum of conflict. You don't slam the door. You don't make a scene. You don't announce your departure. You simply go. And in your going, you affirm, "I will not be shaped by the storm. I will wait until it passes and return as the calm." Later, maybe you'll come back, sit again, speak again, but from a different place. A place of silence first, reflection second, speech last. For now, you let the wind rage elsewhere, and you walk the quiet path outside. Tell me, in your own life, where is the room you've overstayed? What chair are you still sitting in, hoping the storm will end on its own? Can you rise not to run, but to reclaim? Let the chair be empty. Let the room hold its own noise. You have a horizon to return to. You become the warrior who doesn't draw his sword, the one who stands tall as tempers flare, who holds the blade at his side while others swing wildly, who understands that true strength is not in how quickly you strike, but in how slowly you choose not to. It is a strange kind of power, invisible, quiet, and misunderstood by the world. People expect the warrior to fight, to clash, to meet fire with fire, but you have learned something deeper. You know that anger feeds on mirrors, on equal force, on raised voices, on clenched fists. It grows in response, not in solitude, and so you offer it none. You remain still. That doesn't mean you're weak. No, weakness is the one who reacts from impulse, who is driven by the need to conquer every encounter. but you've studied yourself. You've sat with your shadows. You've counted the cost of every unnecessary war. And you know now, not every battlefield deserves your footprints. Seneca wrote, "A great mind becomes a fortress. It yields not to insults, it's not shaken by misfortune." And you tonight have become that fortress, not cold, not distant, but unmoved. Your sword is sharp. Yes, you've sharpened it with experience, with intellect, with all the comebacks you know you could say. But you keep it sheathed, because the victory you seek is not over someone else, it's over yourself. In this moment, you don't deny your anger. You feel it rise, hot, fast, demanding, but instead of answering it, you greet it. You nod at the beast within and say, "Not today." You walk the battlefield without spilling blood, because you've realized peace is not surrender. It is supremacy over the self. Imagine a warrior in a crowded square, accused, provoked, baited. People watch, waiting for the fight, but he doesn't move. His eyes are clear. His jaw is calm. He nods once, then turns and walks away. The crowd murmurs. Is he a coward? Or is he the only one here with nothing left to prove? You begin to see how deeply you've been trained to confuse noise with power, to believe that silence is weakness, that to walk away is to give up. But here's the paradox. The stronger you are, the less you need to prove it. You sit with this truth. Let it settle into your bones. Let it change how you enter each moment, not with readiness to fight, but with readiness to see, to understand, to be. Tonight, ask yourself, where in your life are you still drawing your sword too quickly? And what would it feel like to let it rest? You're not here to be unarmed. You're here to be unshaken. You tune into the space between heartbeats. Not the chaos around you, not the rush of voices or the sting of a careless comment, but that narrow, hidden place inside, where breath slows, thoughts dissolve, and only the thrum of life remains. The world may be loud, but within you there is a pause, and that pause is sacred. It's easy to miss. It's not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand your attention like anger does. But when you begin to notice it, when you learn to dwell there even for a moment, you find something most people never touch. Equanimity, a calm so quiet it frightens the noise. You're in a conversation that's starting to boil. The other person raises their voice. Their body tightens. Their words take on a certain edge. And for a flicker of a second, your old instincts flare. You feel the pull to interrupt, to defend, to say something clever, sharp, victorious. But instead, you return to the space between. You inhale, and in that inhale you catch the faintest truth. You are not your first reaction. And so you wait. That pause, just a breath's length, stretches time. It opens a door. Suddenly you see the moment for what it really is. Not a threat, not a battle, but a test of your clarity. You remember what Marcus Aurelius practiced daily. He said, "If you are disturbed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That power, it lives in the space between heartbeats. You begin to train yourself to return there more often, not to escape, but to listen, to observe, to respond from a place beyond the ego's need to win. The Stoics didn't numb their feelings. They felt deeply, but they refused to be governed by the first wave of emotion. You can feel and still be free. You can hear every insult and still be untouched. You can breathe slowly in a fast world. Imagine being in a room full of static, people shouting, complaining, spinning webs of noise. And you, at the center, hold a candle. It doesn't flicker. It doesn't dim. Because you've stopped responding to wind. You've built stillness from the inside out. And now, in this breath, you realize that place is always available, always there, even when you forget, even when you get pulled into drama or raised voices or restless thoughts. You can return. You can begin again. Let this be your practice, the art of noticing when you leave yourself and gently coming back, not with judgment, not with shame, but with reverence. So tonight, ask yourself, can I live more often in the pause than in the push? Can I learn to answer not from fear, not from pride, but from presence? That is where silence begins, not in absence, but in awareness. And within that awareness, you are untouchable. You become the mountain. The wind howls sharp and erratic. It throws dust, voices, accusations. It demands a reaction, a bending, a breaking, a proof that you are not immovable. But you remain, not because you are numb, not because you are cold, but because you have chosen depth over drama. The mountain does not answer the wind. It simply endures. This is not the silence of suppression, where emotion is buried beneath a stone heart. This is the silence of elevation, where you rise above without abandoning your humanity. The Stoics never told you to feel nothing. They told you to feel with wisdom, to cultivate such an interior strength that even when chaos surrounds you, it does not enter you. There's a reason mountains are revered across cultures. They do not run, they do not boast, they simply are. And you too can learn to be this way. Picture yourself in a situation where someone raises their voice, their hands slicing the air, their words biting. The atmosphere is charged, all eyes turn toward you, but you breathe. Once. And in that breath you decide, I will not mirror this energy. I will not descend just to prove that I can fight here. You stay rooted. You remember what Epictetus said. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. And your opinion has changed. You no longer see the outburst in front of you as something that must be silenced, fixed, conquered. You see it for what it is, a wind passing through, temporary, loud perhaps but not lasting, not defining. You've spent enough years being the leaf tossed by every gust, reacting to every shift in tone or temperature. Now you are the rock. You don't raise your voice to match theirs. You don't argue the details. You don't recite your hurt like a song on repeat. You simply hold. There's a beautiful paradox here. The quieter you become, the more clearly others hear themselves. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes in the face of your stillness they begin to question their noise. And if they don't, it's okay. You're not here to control them. You're here to remain yourself. So you let the wind howl. You let it try to pull you into its dance. But your roots are deep now, deeper than they've ever been. Planted in years of self-reflection, in hours of solitude, in 1,000 moments when you chose dignity over dominance. And tonight you ask yourself, where have I been a leaf when I could have been the mountain? What if the strength I've been searching for isn't in my words but in my silence? Let the wind pass. Let the storm tire itself out. You are still here. And you are unshaken. You become the sand that swallows the arrow. A sharp word is hurled at you, sudden, aimed, intentional. Maybe it carries bitterness, maybe envy, maybe pain that has nothing to do with you. But it flies. And instead of bracing for impact or firing back, you let it land and disappear. Because not all weapons need to be met with armor. Some dissolve on contact if you are soft enough, grounded enough, wise enough to absorb without reacting. This is not about weakness. No, softness can be a form of supreme strength, a strength that doesn't need to prove itself with noise, a strength that understands not everything needs a reply, not every cut requires a scar. The sand never tries to throw the arrow back. It just accepts the landing. And in doing so, the arrow loses its power. You remember what Musonius Rufus taught, that the greatest test of character is how you respond to injustice, especially when you have the chance to respond harshly and choose not to. You've been there before, haven't you? The conversation that turned sharp, the social gathering where someone slipped a jab into casual speech, the message that felt more like a slap than a sentence. And oh, how tempting it was to push back, to explain, to cut deeper. But tonight, you do something quieter. You become like the earth. You don't harden into stone. You loosen into sand. You feel the arrow enter, but it doesn't pierce. It sinks, gently, slowly, until it is swallowed by your depth. This is what emotional resilience can look like. Not resistance, but receptivity. You learn to hold pain without multiplying it, to contain heat without catching fire. That's not detachment, it's alchemy. You transform what comes at you, and you do it in silence. Because you've started to understand most attacks aren't really about you. They're about the one throwing them, their fear, their shame, their story. And what happens when they strike and you don't respond? When their hostility meets stillness, something shifts, maybe not in them, but in you. You begin to experience what it means to be free, to not be pushed and pulled by every arrow that comes your way, to no longer live on the defensive, to no longer need to win battles you never asked for. It's not easy. There are moments it stings, moments you question yourself, moments when silence feels like surrender. But then you remember, what you're doing is not giving up. It's rising above. It's becoming wide enough to hold the blow and not pass it on. So tonight, ask yourself, what arrows have I been carrying that could have dissolved had I let them? What would it feel like to be sand, not stone? Let them land. Let them vanish. You are not here to fight every battle. You are here to become whole. You become the monk at the market gate. The crowd bustles around you, loud, impatient, brimming with energy. Sellers shout their prices. Children run past, laughing or crying. Somewhere in the noise, someone hurls an insult. It's pointed, public, meant to provoke. You feel it land in the space between you. Eyes turn. Someone waits for your reaction, but you do not answer. You do not flinch. You simply bow your head, not in shame, but in stillness, and continue sweeping the stones beneath your feet. This is what it means to choose peace where pride once stood. There is an old Zen tale about a monk insulted by a passerby. When the disciple asked why he didn't respond, the monk said, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does it belong?" You smile at that, because you know now, not every gift deserves acceptance, and not every insult deserves attention. In the ancient world, Stoic philosophers were mocked often. They were accused of being too passive, too detached. But what those critics didn't understand was that their silence wasn't absence, it was presence. A presence so deeply rooted in inner freedom, it could not be shaken by outside noise. Epictetus himself had been a slave, beaten, broken in body, but unbroken in spirit. He taught, when someone acts poorly toward you, remember, they act from what they think is right. It is not your business to judge them, only to govern yourself. And so you do. You feel the sting, yes, the natural tightening in your chest, the ancient call to defend yourself. But you've grown wiser. You've seen what happens when we let ego drive the carriage. It crashes. So now you slow the horses, you step back. You watch the moment unfold like a play, and you no longer feel cast in the role of victim or avenger. You are the witness now, still, gentle, aware. You sweep the ground. You let the insult pass like smoke in the breeze. The crowd may not understand. Some may see you as weak. Others may nudge each other, smirking, "He had nothing to say." But in truth, you had everything to say and chose silence instead. That's the kind of power the world forgets exists. The kind that holds its center in a marketplace of chaos. You think of all the moments in life when you've answered too quickly, too defensively, too harshly, not because you were right, but because you were afraid of appearing wrong. And you ask, what if I had just stayed quiet? What if I had just kept sweeping? That monk at the gate, he lives in you now. A quiet figure in the storm, no longer needing the approval of those who pass by. You are no longer waiting for applause. You are practicing something far rarer, alignment. So tonight, let the world buzz. Let it speak of you what it will. You have your broom, you have your silence, and that is enough. You become the prisoner who finds freedom inside. The room is small. The walls are tight. The air feels stale, as if the world has forgotten this space even exists. Around you, the situation is unjust, perhaps someone's betrayal, or a system's failure, or simply life's indifferent cruelty. You didn't choose it, but here you are. And yet, inside, you feel something shift. A door opens where there should be none. Because even here, especially here, you remember what the Stoics taught. Your freedom is not outside you. It's within your choices, within your perception, within your response. Even in a locked room, you are not trapped unless you surrender your mind. The external world can put chains on your circumstances, but it cannot touch your will unless you hand it over. You sit on the edge of the metaphorical cot and look inward. There, you see the habits of thought that once held you tighter than any cell, the need for justice in every interaction, the craving to be heard, the desperation to correct every wrong. Now in the stillness you see, that is the real prison, and you begin to walk free not through escape but through understanding. You remember Viktor Frankl, a man who lived through real confinement, who saw horrors and yet wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." And now you taste that truth in your own life. The person who wronged you, they may never apologize. The system that overlooked you, it may never be fixed. The expectations that crushed you, they may never be met. But none of that defines you. Only what you do next does. You breathe. Deeply, not in resignation, but in power. The kind of power that doesn't need to be loud. The kind that rests in knowing, they can confine my world but not my mind. And so you build a new space inside, quiet, vast, boundless. It begins with a single decision. I will not let anger occupy what could be peace. You think of all the people who live in large homes with small minds, who walk free under open skies, and yet are imprisoned by their own bitterness. And then you think of those, like you, who choose to be free where freedom seems impossible because they've found the key inside. So tonight, ask yourself, where am I still imprisoned not by circumstance but by story? What false walls have I stopped questioning? You may not control the bars around you, but you can unlock the door within and walk through it, again and again, into silence, into peace, into a kind of freedom no one can steal. You become the cup that was never full, not because you are lacking, but because you no longer wish to be filled with what does not nourish you. There was a time, perhaps, when you absorbed everything, every slight, every insult. Every judgment passed your way, you took it in as if it belonged, as if you were meant to hold it, carry it, ruminate over it, but not anymore. Now you choose what enters your vessel, and more importantly, what does not. When anger knocks, you no longer open the door with welcome arms. You listen, perhaps, you observe, but you do not invite it to stay. You are learning the sacred art of selective acceptance. A Stoic does not deny that others are cruel, mistaken, or reactive. A Stoic simply refuses to let those things take root in the soul. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. And you are tired of letting your soul be painted by the opinions and projections of others. You hold your cup gently in your hands tonight, and you notice it's not overflowing with resentment or reaction. It's mostly empty but peaceful, spacious, ready to be filled with things that matter: calm, clarity, presence, purpose. You think back to a moment, maybe it was earlier this week, maybe years ago, when someone said something that stung. Maybe they knew it would hurt, maybe they didn't, but either way you took it in. You held it like it was true, and it shaped you even if you didn't realize it. Now, with distance, you see, that wasn't yours to hold. You didn't have to drink from that cup. You never did. So much of your suffering has come from trying to digest what was never meant for you, the bad moods of others, the misdirected anger, the drama that didn't begin with you but somehow became yours to carry. Not anymore. You tilt the cup, you pour it out, you say softly, "This is not mine." And you let it go. You're not becoming apathetic, you're becoming intentional. You're not pushing away life. You're discerning what parts of life actually feed your soul and what parts only poison your peace. Tonight, as you rest, ask yourself, what have I been holding that no longer belongs inside me? Where can I choose emptiness over clutter? The cup does not always need to be full. Sometimes its power is in the space it offers to receive, to reflect, to be. You are not here to carry the world's noise. You are here to carry your light. You become the bridge that did not collapse. Pressure builds. Expectations weigh down like stone. Someone demands an answer, a reaction, a stance. The situation is tense, maybe in your family or at work or even within your own heart. Everything seems to tremble under the weight of it all. But you do not break. You bend, perhaps. You feel the tension pull at your foundation, test the strength of your silence. But still, you hold. Because you've built your stillness on something deeper than agreement or approval. You've built it on awareness, the kind that doesn't vanish in difficulty, but reveals its true form. A bridge is not judged by how it performs on quiet days but on stormy ones. So is your calm. You recall the words of Seneca. It is not that we are given a short life, but that we waste much of it. And how much of it have you spent caught in arguments that resolved nothing? How many days have you collapsed under the weight of someone else's chaos, mistaking their urgency for your duty? Now you pause, you scan your structure, and you realize you are stronger than you thought. You are not here to carry every weight placed on your shoulders. You are here to discern what truly matters, what is yours to lift and what can be laid down. The bridge doesn't rage against the pressure. It doesn't speak. It simply stays. That is the kind of silence you are learning now. Not silence of avoidance, but of alignment. Not absence of sound, but presence of soul. Someone may raise their voice. Someone may accuse you of indifference. They may call your calm a refusal, your lack of retaliation a flaw. Let them. You've chosen not to collapse into their storm. You've chosen to hold gently, firmly, faithfully. And here's the paradox. The more you embrace this posture, the less weight actually burdens you. Because you no longer carry their judgment inside you. You no longer try to fix what was never yours to repair. You become the place where tension dissolves, not multiplies, where stillness echoes more loudly than shouting ever could. Tonight, ask yourself, what weight have I taken on that I do not need to carry? What pressure am I interpreting as obligation when it's only noise? You are not made of glass. You are not about to snap. You've been tested, and here you are, still breathing, still listening, still holding steady. Let the world rumble. Let the tension build and fade again. You are the bridge, and you do not collapse. You become the echo that refused to answer. They speak sharply, loudly, with intention. Their words are barbed, their tone clipped, their posture made of challenge. They are not just communicating, they are provoking, waiting, but you do not echo back. You do not give their energy a second life. You let their words die in the silence between you. This is not about pride. This is not about rising above to win a moral high ground. It's something much subtler and more difficult. You've learned that not every sound deserves a return. Not every note played demands a harmony. Sometimes stillness is the only wise reply. The Stoics called it apatheia, not the absence of feeling, but the absence of suffering through reactivity, the ability to face life without being unmade by it. In this moment, you become that. The other person waits. They expected a defense, a denial, a rebuttal sharp enough to keep the game going, but you've laid down the instrument. You no longer play, and in the quiet that follows, something strange happens. They hear themselves. Maybe for the first time, because echoes keep the illusion alive. Without them, noise must confront its own hollowness. You've seen this before. Arguments that only grow because they are fed. Disputes that spiral not from their content, but from their volume. You remember walking away from one once, the disbelief in the other person's eyes when you simply didn't reply, and how light you felt afterwards. The silence didn't mean you were weak. It meant you were done performing. It meant you had found something more valuable than being right, being well. You hear the voice again, maybe not out loud this time, but inside you. That internal critic, that rehearsed monologue, that memory of what you should have said, you let it speak. And then once more you do not echo, you breathe, you observe, you dissolve the moment with presence. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, you always own the option of having no opinion. And in doing so, you regain control. This doesn't mean you never speak, but when you do, it's deliberate, clean, free of venom. Because you've waited long enough to respond from clarity, not injury. You ask yourself tonight, what echoes have I been feeding lately? What dialogues exist only because I continue to reply? The next time someone tests your silence, let them. You don't owe your peace to anyone else's chaos. You don't need to become the voice that proves or explains. You can be the space where noise ends. Let it end with you. You become the garden no one can trample. Tucked away behind the noise, the distractions, the sharpness of the world, there is a space inside you, quiet, lush, untouched, You didn't build it overnight. It has taken years, seasons of pain, storms of misunderstanding, long winters of silence, but it's here now, and no one can enter without your permission. You tend to it carefully, not with walls or thorns, but with awareness. You know what to let in and what to let bloom. And more importantly, you know what must stay outside. Anger that isn't yours, shame that doesn't belong, conflict that demands your spirit. Because this garden isn't neutral ground. It's sacred. A place where your deepest truths grow. The world may shout. People may press at the edges of your peace, trying to find a way in. But you've learned how to meet them at the gate with kindness, but with clarity. You don't have to let everything in just because it knocks. And when it comes to anger, you don't even open the door. The Stoics spoke often about the inner citadel, a metaphor for the mind protected by virtue and reason. But your citadel isn't made of stone. It's made of roots, soft soil, and a kind of trust that cannot be shaken by someone else's turmoil. You recall a recent moment, maybe it was subtle, when someone brought their frustration to your doorstep. They expected you to absorb it, to engage, to take it personally. But you didn't. You stayed in your garden. You answered with a calm voice, or maybe not at all. And in that silence, you weren't absent, you were present in a way that didn't feed the fire. That was growth. That was mastery. The world doesn't teach you to protect your inner peace. It teaches you to prove it, to defend it, to show that you're unbothered loudly. But the real stillness is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It shows in the choices you make when no one is watching. In the moments you bite your tongue not out of suppression, but out of compassion for yourself, and for the chaos you refuse to let grow inside. You ask yourself tonight, what kind of garden am I growing? Do I tend to it each day or leave the gate open to whatever storm arrives? Let your answers come slowly, like rain softening the earth. You are not here to be hardened. You are here to be rooted. To grow a space inside that is so alive, so honest, so at peace, that no one, no matter how angry, can trample it. Let the world pass by. Let the gate stay firm. Your garden waits for you. You become the silence that outlasts the storm. Not the silence of exhaustion, nor the silence of defeat, but the silence that chooses to remain when the winds have lost their voice, when the thunder has raged and run dry. You've endured the fire of others' anger, the weight of injustice, the sting of misunderstanding. You faced the temptation to retaliate, to correct, to strike back with cleverness or coldness. And you didn't. Instead, you became still. Still not because you had no words, but because you discovered a deeper language. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that doesn't need to be heard to be true. The kind that lingers long after the noise fades. You think of all the storms you've walked through, conversations that twisted into arguments, moments when your heart raced and your hands trembled. But what do you remember most clearly now? It's not what was said. It's how it felt to choose peace over reaction. It's how empowering it was to walk away still intact, not because you won, but because you didn't lose yourself. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. And you have become unlike them, not superior, not cold, but sovereign. You answer anger not with absence, but with presence, a presence so full, so steady, it needs no defense. You sit now in the afterglow of that silence. The storm has passed. The skies are still. The world feels softer somehow, not because it changed, but because you did. You didn't give in. You didn't give it life. And in doing so, you gave yourself something better, your dignity, your wholeness, your unshakable core. You listen to the quiet now. Maybe there's the hum of a fan, the distant murmur of a city asleep, the breath of your own chest rising and falling. And this, too, is your reply. Let it be enough. Let it remind you that your power does not lie in being heard, but in being held. Held by your own discipline, by your own awareness, by your refusal to let the world pull you out of your own rhythm. You may feel tired. That's okay. Silence takes